What up, folks? Shadow Gauge here for another sound design tutorial. So today I'm going to be basically going over my go-to synthesizer. I know a lot of people like Serum, and frankly, I'm not a fan because it crashes on me 9 out of 10 times because it doesn't like what I'm trying to do with sound design. You know, I want to do more complicated things that I think it was designed that it wasn't designed to do. I think, so I don't really use it. But at the same time, I'm not a big fan of the sound of the output. It kind of has this kind of metallic sound to it that's just, I don't know. Like if I want it to sound metallic, I want control over that. I don't want it to just automatically always sound metallic no matter what I do. But anyway, let's see. Is my camera good? Maybe I should adjust it down a little. No. May I adjust it up a little? Put my da 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 da. Hey. All right. Anyway, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get right into this. Pop it on over to my desktop and then go right into Ableton. All right, now I'm just gonna go ahead over here and bring up Massive and start talking about Massive, my massively massive. Now I'm gonna just go ahead and move it here. So I'm just gonna do it like this. No, I probably can't. There we go. Get it away so you can see everything. Okay, so first, let's just start on the global, I guess. So obviously there's random on here. You can randomize things and get a kind of, I don't know, decent sound, I guess. I've honestly never gotten a good sound randomizing. And to start, see, I don't even necessarily like that everything is on. Like, turn it all off. Everything just off. Leave one on. Let's go ahead and mark that up to 1. Turn both of these all the way up because just for the purpose of the tutorial and the explanation here. So if this is halfway and these are both down a little, then I have half of my signal going to filter 1, half of my signal going to filter 2, which there's no filters on it, and then it's being turned down on both of those. And of course, this is just the mix between filter 1 and filter 2. So usually, keeping this right in the middle is probably the best place to start. And then, I guess go over here. Ooh. My shaker. Obviously pan it pans. The bypass signal, I'm, to be quite honest, I know what this does, but I don't know. It just, like, if you go over here to routing, that has this bypass. I don't know if bypassing it turns it all the way to bypass, turns the bypass off, but from what I've kind of realized is that no matter what, one of these has to be bypassed. You can't just have, and you don't really have much control over routing other than that. You have routing under bypasses going to FX1, FX2, or EQ, so you can switch these around, so your bypasses, either going in, here's your FX1, here's your FX2, and here's your EQ. So, you also have control where your inserts are. So, on this one, basically anything that's going through filter 1 is And let's see here. If we just follow this, so boom, it goes in here, goes into neither insert. I could turn this insert on there and turn that one on there. But you can only have one or the other. So right now I'm not even routing insert 2, but I can put insert 2 on this side, or insert 1 on this side, insert 2 on this side. So you have a little bit of variance in case you're trying to do some like Nero bass or something like that. It's not that difficult to set up for Nero bass. But let's just go ahead and put it back on the default for now. And then yeah, you can control where your feedback is going in, and you can have your feedback simply on that too. So you have a few options for routing here. Let's just go back to default, turn the feedback off, and of course you can just turn those all off. I wonder if I can turn this off. No. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't think you can turn the bypass off, and I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I've played with that, and I kind of just came to the conclusion that maybe it's not coded correctly, or maybe I should actually read the manual on it. But who the fuck reads manuals, man? Fuck that shit. I read shit. Anyway, so if you go into your envelopes, your fourth envelope is basically what controls your amp. That is your amp mod. So this is your basic output envelope. Oftentimes, just for a starting envelope, turn the K all the way off, turn this level all the way up, and this level, there's your attack level. If you don't know, I guess whatever. I kind of expect anybody watching my shit probably is well beyond basic, but just to assume that maybe you don't know what an envelope is. I'm actually kind of coaching a couple people right now that I don't they haven't admitted they don't know what an envelope is yet, but I'm pretty sure they have no idea what an envelope is. Anyway, your envelope is your attack, decay, sustain, which you don't even see sustain on here, but this right here, the level in the decay box, that is actually your sustain. Okay, so if you turn that all the way up, you don't need decay. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to turn this back, and then of course you have release. So, and I don't necessarily like how the graphics portray this, but it's not to say that it's incorrect in any way, shape, or form. It's just I feel it could be done better. So anyways, going through this, we have the option here for obviously this one is an envelope. You have a few options with the envelope, and you have a few presets. So simple ADSR2. Let's see, where's the AD vibrato? I honestly, that is the first time I have seen that. That's probably an S loop. So I've added the S loop here. Aha, and then there's a morphing. Aha, ha ha ha. And let's see, what if I do? That's interesting. See, I just learned something new. I've been using this software for 15 years. And I didn't even know that was an option. I've seen it there. But, that's just... So, that's interesting. You learn something new every day. I'm glad I did this tutorial, because now I got something else to play with on this. But anyway, so you have 4 different envelopes, and then you also have, you also go over here and you also have LFOs. Now with these, you have performer and step, okay, along with the LFOs. And if you pull this down here, so here's where it is, your LFO, your performer, and your stepper, okay? Now, I would recommend, if you are using an LFO, not to use a sine wave for your LFO. So it's just, I don't know. Personal preference. I get a better, it's more desirable if it's not a sine wave, because the sine wave, it's the curve, so it's like it's not an even LFO, you know. And you may want that, you may not want that, but I've kind of found that you'll run into more issues with a sine wave, if you're using a sine wave for an LFO, than you will if you're using a basic triangle. And I'm sure you have multiple different, so you even on this, you even have multiple different types of LFOs you can go with. So there's that option. And, you know, this, your internal envelope, I don't really use this very much, but a lot of times what you'll see is this all the way over. From what I've read, most of the time, it's best practice, if it is all the way over like that, just to move it back. Because if you can imagine, it's going all the way up and then it's just dropping. So that drop right there is going to cause it'll cause issues. You don't ever really want that, especially if it's an LFO, because it's gonna fuck shit up. So if you are using the internal envelope, understand that you probably you don't want this all the way up. You know, like you can have that and just there's a little stab mark. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and turn this back to default. And you know, his default here that is the default. So, and of course, if you can also adjust where the LFO goes by grabbing this little dragger here and dragging it around. And then this is your LFO curve, so you can blend them if you'd like. I'm not even going to worry about blending them. Then you have we'll go over the sync options. So if you're on sync, that it basically it gives you a ratio. I don't like ratio. I do not like that. I wish I had better control over this, but I mean, it's just simply because you're probably never going. I mean, if you really want to, having the ratio does is I can do things like see, it doesn't even the ratio. So I guess whatever I do, like 3 out of 16ths, you know, like that's going to give me the triplet or whatever. And I don't know. It's not really that useful having it set like that. And it is confusing. The math is fairly difficult to figure out what you're doing. Not to say that not saying it's difficult. It just, you know, it's not exactly the most intuitive thing in this program, to say the least. But usually you're going to want it on sync. Restart, you know, if I have restart off, then the LFO is just running right now. So it'll, depending on what you're using the LFO for, like if I'm using the LFO for variance, to add variance to something, then I'm going to want to turn restart off. If I'm using the LFO for just for sound, like if it's like a one shot or something, or like a staccato kind of stab noise, and I'm using the LFO just to kind of, you know, add some type of variance. And fact matter, if I'm using staccato, I may not even want to use an LFO, but there's always the option there. So if it's on restart, it'll always start at the same spot. If it's not on restart, it'll basically just run the whole time. And then this is, you know, the amp for how much of it is affecting. You have this all the way down, you attach an LFO to something, it's not going to do anything. So say for instance, and here's a, you know, something you may do. I do this a lot. So, you know, I have a filter, so I add LFO to the filter, and then I want it going back and forth right there. Okay, but I don't necessarily want, I want to be able to control that filter. So what I'll do is I'll go over here to these are my macro commands down here in the bottom, macro control, and I'm going to drag this macro control over, no, not velocity. Grab this one and put it right here and do that. That way when I come into the browser here, this one control, which I could rename, let's see, modulation, I guess I have to name it here. Let's see, undefined, huh. Oh, that's probably for the output. Ah, there's where you name it. So I name it here, and I just, LFO amount, yada yada. Turn on cap lock, LFA, low frequency amplitude, dog. It's a low FA. Just, low LFO amount. So boom, boom, I have done named that one. Okay. So that's one of your basic. One of the things you can do just for controlling your LFOs if you want to use an LFO. So, if I'm making a wobble sound where I'm using the filter to actually control the sound or control the wobble, then, that gives me that. Now, frankly, I have found that if I'm using a filter to control the LFO and I'm using like a low pass filter or something, I mean, it's not necessarily a good idea. There's better ways to do wobbles, which, I'll get into on another sound design, not this sound design. This one, I am basically just going over some of the options you can do with massive, because the fact of the matter is, it's not as intuitive as Serum, and quite frankly, I mean, as much as you can do a lot with Serum, you can do a lot more with massive. Now, one of the things that I'm not 100% sure on, but I can almost guarantee somewhere in my, if I go in here and, I decide to go into this and then come down here. Nope, that's not what I'm doing. Go to my program files and find my native instruments here. Go into massive. I don't even think it's in here. Yeah, so this is your basic stuff. But I do believe if I go down here to I think if I'm in program data, native instruments, it's somewhere. It's program data, maybe user. I know I've found it before. Users. Whatever, I don't want to go into that because then somebody can actually hack me. That was probably a bad idea to share that. Anyway, I'm pretty sure if I actually got into it, I'm pretty sure you can probably add your own wave tables. I know people have extracted them before. I actually have the extracted ones. But I'm kind of guessing that, with enough aptitude, I think you could probably add some wave tables to this, or change them, or I don't know if it's a good idea to try. I'm not going to try, but I think it might be possible. That's definitely some way higher level shit. But for this tutorial, I'm not even going to be worrying about that. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and add a MIDI note or MIDI thing here. One note, let's just keep it kind of low frequency. I don't want it screaming at me, so I'll just do this. Kind of a nifty little pulse here. Doot, 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 doot. Okay. And go ahead and turn this down. Let's go ahead and actually, before I do anything here, let's control my audio. And let's drop this -18 dB on there. That way, I'm not deafening anybody or anything. And for now, I'm just going to go ahead, and in order to turn this off, you just right click and go off. Right click this and go off. And let's just hear what my sound's at. Okay. So just a very basic saw wave. And, you know, we can kind of go through these. That's a smooth square. Now, this... You know, just to kind of give you an idea of what some of the options are. So now what happens if we go in here to format? That changes a lot, okay? And of course you have bend. Plus, we have bend plus minus. And then you have just basic minus. And then of course the spectrum is default. So that's just spectrum is, I guess, the way you can look at spectrum. Spectrum is basically a low-pass filter. Anyway, let's go ahead and turn this up all the way. Put it all the way on 1. I'm tired. I'm gonna go ahead and crank this up and put this. What's default there? That is default there, and that is default there. Yeah, that's where I'd put it. Okay. So, and if you just go through these. There's a decent number of options. That implex, I end up using that a lot because it has that harmonic sound to it. Add octave, additive 1, additive 2, additive 3. Inharmonic. Sine arm 1, sine. See, I don't even know what half this stuff means. I use this one. I think it's funny it says woody because it kind of sounds like a bell. Sync. Acid funk for that ass with that California class. Our shit is out there. Mad props to one of my all-time favorite old school DJs, man. Super DJ Dimitri. What was it? Oh, I forget the band he's from. Whatever. The Super DJ Dimitri, he's fucking awesome. He's old, but he's awesome. So I'm just kind of going through these just so you can. There's a large number of options. Obviously, if you're using if you're using Serum, or if you're using Vital, or if you're using even the Wave in Ableton, though I can't. I would never recommend it. When I first started using it, I thought it sounded good. I was like, oh yeah, this is making great sound. And then I tried to, basically tried to master a song and listen to it next to, you know what? Which one is this? Stundium. I'm going to have to remember that. See, I haven't even went through all these. There's things about this software I've never used. Weird. I've used the Kango a lot. Actually, this is why. Maybe it was this one. Yeah. Kind of a squishy noise. Anyway, put it back on Spectrum. Frozen. I wonder if it's gonna break out some Disney choir here. That's vulgar, man. Ah, yes. Side chaining. I wonder what side chaining does. I wonder if that's like if I turn that on. Interesting. Interesting, ja. That's funny too. You know, you can like say, maybe I can't save presets. Looks like I should be able to save a preset. Oh, it'll just pull up instruments. I know what that's for. Never mind. Yes, I've used this software before. Classic Steve-O bullshit. Disto. Carbon. Speech. So yes, put on speech and then put on format. I don't even know if you can hear that. Crank it up. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Huh. Interesting. So there's obviously a lot of options here. And then on top of all these options, okay, I can come down here and I have modulation. So this is basically your FM modulation per se. So honestly, that's the other reason I'm not a big fan of Serum, is because it doesn't actually do true to life FM modulation. And this kind of does. So if I just go over here to 1 and then I'm on FM and then I crank this up to like say 32, you notice it does absolutely nothing. And that always confused me. Now if I go in here, phase, all of a sudden now that's doing something. Okay, and same ring mod. FM of filter. So see, you're learning with me. I'm learning something. That's why I've never had this work, is because I didn't know. I didn't realize it said FM of filter. For some reason, I thought it said FM or filter. You know, this is why I need to do these tutorials, is because, frankly, I'm teaching myself here, too. So, that's how you do that. And I guess then I can go here, scream, turn this up. Yes. that one doesn't do anything. So pretty much guessing band reject probably does. Oh, ha ha ha. I've wondered, you know, I always wondered, like, why is that blacked out? I didn't realize why. Because I can't use it. If it's blacked out, I can't use it. So you can't use it on all these. You use it on low pass, all pass. I use it on all pass. I can probably use it on double notch. I can use it on band pass, but not on band reject. No, I can't even use it on band pass. I guess that makes sense. So essentially, if you are using the filter of FM, then it is basically low pass through double notch. So good to know. Great to know. And of course, none does nothing. And phase is depending on what you're using. So one of my go-tos on this, I really do like the effect from, is squelchy, and for phase. And I mean, you can just hear the is that squelchy? Where's squelch? Is that the one I was looking for? Squelch. Yeah, I guess that is the right one. But anyway, so that's not right. Oh yeah, squelchy. Was that not what I was on? Oh, that's funny. Aha. So hey, Native Instruments, just let you know, it says squelchy up here and squelchy down here. So that's apparently you know, I was wondering about that. I'm like, gee, God, that just doesn't make sense. But anyway, so that one gives you a pretty large effect if you're using the modulation and phase. Especially if you're using modulation phase on squelchy. Squelch. Come on, why now I'm all messed up. Now I can't say that. Squelchy, duck organ, D-org. Fend 1, Fend 2, Flanders. It's like an organ sound. Some old school shit right there. All right, so yeah, and as I said, there's quite a few there's quite a few options here. I don't know why you would, frankly, if once I had my massive back, I really was like, yeah, I was. Oh God. And here I go. I'm about to go off on some shit because you know what? Fuck Splice. I tried canceling my account multiple times to the extent where I thought it had been canceled. I wasn't seeing any indication that it wasn't canceled because frankly, I'm on Windows 7. When my laptop tanked, I couldn't even use the software. Okay? So I canceled it, thought everything was good, and even went 4 months without paying the bill. Figured, oh yeah, emailed them, said, hey, please shut this off, thought everything was good. And all of a sudden, I completely broke because they've been taking $30 a month out of an account that I thought I'd canceled the account. I can't even use the software. I couldn't even, it did not work on Windows 7. And they just kept taking the money out. And, it fucked me. The reason I don't have internet right now. The reason I ended up not being able to finish college. The reason I'm basically fucked is because of Splice. So you know what? Fuck you, Splice. If you have Splice, cancel your account. Like, fuck them. You don't need them. Okay, any of the software you're getting from them, you can get other places 10 times cheaper. And if, you know what, if for whatever reason you're concerned, you know, like, I mean, I'm not going to say, you know, piracy is good, you should pirate shit, but the fact of the matter is, I pirated Massive. Well, actually, to be fair, no, I didn't. I did pirate Massive, but I owned a version of Massive. I just lost the version I owned. And thank you, Native Instruments. This is why I love Native Instruments, is because they gave me you know, even though I wasn't able to get into the account, and it was attached to a dead email address because when Comcast switched to Xfinity, they got rid of anybody that was on Comcast, and since the email address was attached to Comcast, not Xfinity, I couldn't get into it, so I couldn't recover my account. And Native Instruments was nice enough to give me a brand new version of Complete 13. And I just thank you so much, Native Instruments. Like, Native Instruments is fucking awesome. Fuck Splice. If you have Splice, fuck Splice. Like, 100%. They, like, I cannot, like, I swear to God, as soon as I have enough money, I am suing the fuck out of them, because I sent them emails starting back in April and of last year. Okay, so like a year ago. Okay, they were taking $30 a month for over a year. Okay, I should have had my internet paid for up until August of this year, and I've been without internet since September because of Splice, and it's not even useful. Like, I couldn't like, the samples are useless. All of them are useless. Like, half the shit, I'm like, oh wow, I've heard this in like 10 different songs now. Great, I'm glad I spent money on this crappy ass sample that everybody and their mom uses. Hooray for me. Now, fuck Splice, you know? I don't know. Whatever. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, but god damn it. Like, I cannot believe they did that to me. And like, still, dude, I've emailed them 1,000 times. Nobody answers. Like, you know, I'm about... Like, you know what? I'll get my shit together. I'm driving to New York. Okay, Splice, I am coming into your place with a baseball bat, and you can deal with me then. You want to rob me? I'll rob you. Not really, but that's what I feel like doing. So, you know what? Screw Splice. They're just, it's bullshit. They'll rip you off. You know what I'm saying? Like, get your shit together. Buy your shit. Like, there's no reason to have anything other than Massive. And I mean, I think outside of Complete, you can pick up Massive for like $50, dude. It's cheap. And, you know, it's obviously more than usable. It's you don't really need much beyond this. You know, now that I know where the organ sounds are, because I had no idea that, you know, Flend would give me an organ sound. You know, but hey. That is a damn good organ sound. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm like, wow. Good to know. Good to know. Anyway, so that's basically, and you know, you can have multiple oscillators here. So obviously I can turn this on and, you know, say put this on that, and let's just go down to -12. Now we got this. Oh wait, let's turn the amp all the way up, make sure that's going through the same one. Modulation off for now. Okay, I won't get into voicing quite yet. Let's go ahead and just keep it on oscillator for now. Routing. Global. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway. Okay, so as I'm saying, you can add multiple ones, and these are, if you go into routing, I mean, you can tell all the oscillators are basically in serial. And to be fair, while having the FM type modulation from one to the other is, I mean, it gives you some cool sounds, but not really. You know, if you've watched I do one tutorial where I was basically using FM8 to basic sound design shit, but, post-processing sound design, and I use the FM8, and if you're paying attention, anytime I was modulating one oscillator with another oscillator, a lot of times you just get sound, or you get noise. You don't necessarily get something that's usable out the door. And with this, I want something that's usable out the door. So we'll just go to, let's say MD throat, go here, turn that down. And yeah, I don't really use that very often. Mellow font, turn about there, intensity up. There we go. And then, anytime you're doing this, you don't necessarily want it to be on the note. Having it a couple cents off is beautiful. And of course, once you start to add the third one, you'll notice that we'll go to smooth square here, crank it all the way up, put it on this, da-da-da. It's almost too much. That's almost too much. In IMO, that's almost too much. So, in general, I'll usually, I say it's too much, but if I'm using a sub, if I'm adding a sub, then meh. But most of the time in my sound design, I don't necessarily want to be adding the sub in the synthesizer. I'll add the sub separately. Now I could and just simply, separate out the two channels so that basically my main output from the channel is, doesn't have the sub, and then I have the sub separated. That way it's together, and it's just simple. Like if I were to, here to give an example here, if I duplicate this, and then let's just flatten this. What does this sound like? Solo. That's way too low. And of course I can't hear shit. Hopefully you can hear something. Haha. I hear a little. So if I go on massive, let's just turn this. Even these out a little here. This is also why, if you're EQing digital audio, Stop. What the hell? Why? Why would I EQ this? I have full control over all these frequencies. Take that one out. That's my low frequency, right? Oh, my health, I did that. There we go. So, you know, that obviously the low frequency is a little too much, so I'll bring this down. I want this somewhat even here. Let's go ahead and click this. Boom. Oh wait, I wonder if I gotta... Do I have the ability to freeze this? All these program freezes on my shit. It doesn't look like I can freeze this one. But essentially, you know, I can tell that my low frequency is a bit too low. So let's go ahead and bring this up till -24. Boom. Now it's not too low. That's perfect. Okay, so there. I've added a sub to it, and everything is nice and, you know, about even. So this sound is good. And really, if you're ever doing this, you really do kind of want an oscilloscope hooked up to this. If you're doing serious sound design, and you also want to be looking at the spectrum, just because. And I can tell this is also. There we go. Make this even. A little bit of movement in it, not much. But yeah, okay. So there's that. And then if I were to say, now that I've done that, and that's pretty even, I can just go ahead. Let's see. Hold on. Make sure I'm like. Let's clip it a little. There we go. Now let's just go ahead and freeze this track and flatten it. So if, you know, I was actually dealing with a sub, you know, a lot of times people separate their subs, and the way I see them do it, like, I'm just, oh my God, like, who the fuck told you to do that? Like, are you kidding me? You know, if you want to separate your subs, there, or here. Ta-da! There, your sub is separated. All I have to do is come over here to EQs, throw on an EQ 8, and we'll just go ahead and take this, and we're going to just go bam, and we're going to bring this down to like 130, and then same on this. We'll just drag this one up here to that, and we'll go ahead and flip this to the other side. And now let's just go, yeah, let's go ahead and get rid of that. Solo. And how does that sound compared to this? Oh, right, because I did not fix this sound. I needed to turn this on and bring this up to 24. Doesn't help that the sound wasn't the same when I tried to do this. But, you know, that should be it. Oh, right. I also... There we go. But, you know, whatever. I could just turn this one up. Oh yeah, that's probably also half of it. Just turn warp off on those. I wish I could change the default off of warp, because I do not, or change it, because I don't use beats. I've never once. I haven't used I haven't used Beats since like Ableton 3. For fuck's sake, like it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so if you're separating your sub, that in my opinion, that's probably the best way to separate your sub, is just make 2 channels, copy one over. Technically, that's not going to add any other, like you're not adding space because it's referencing the same file. But at least on a PC. I think on a Mac, yeah, that may not be true on a Mac. May or may not be true on a Mac. I know Macs have a tendency to have some redundant file bullshit that, frankly, and I mean, I'm just going to say this. If you're producing on a Mac, it's probably not the best of ideas. Now, performing, I definitely, if you're performing live, you should probably be performing on a Mac. Just because, number one, you have a higher quality output, and you have but usually in 9 times out of 10 you have a better screen. But that's not to say that your higher quality output is going to carry, if I'm producing, I could produce the song on any platform, and the output on a Mac is still going to be higher quality than the output on most PCs, because Macs have basically use a 44.1 kilohertz sound 80 converter, and PCs, well, most PCs, Android, most 1/8 inch ports, most of these ports right here, almost every single one on the planet is actually only 22 kilohertz. This is 22 kilohertz. My Samsung is 22 kilohertz. My Lenovo is 22 kilohertz. My computer is 22 kilohertz. They said 90% of your 1/8 inch ports are 22 kilohertz because, I mean, truth be told, it's not like you can hear the difference. But technically, there's a chance that if you're on high quality speakers, that it could make a difference going out on a 44.1 as opposed to a 22. And so because of that, performing with a Mac, I would say is more desirable than performing with a PC laptop in most instances. But production-wise, if you're producing on a Mac, you're producing with one hand tied behind your back at all times. And, if you like a challenge, produce on a Mac. Hey, why am I going to stop you? But, there's definitely better options. Anyway, getting back on track here, now that I've basically been fuck Splice, fuck Mac, fuck Apple in general. I don't like their business tactics either. That's the other reason. I really don't like Apple's business tactics. I don't know if you're familiar, if you remember when I think it was the iPad 2s went back to the iPad, which was technically the iPad 3. They sped it up. By lowering the resolution so that it, reacted quicker. Because there was no point in, the resolution it was at, you couldn't really tell the difference because the output, even though the output resolution was higher, it was pointless. It was absolutely pointless. And they basically gave you, that was the thing that got me, is like, it was not only more expensive, but it, while it appeared faster, it actually wasn't faster. It was actually a slower system, but it was lower. It was a lower resolution, so it looked like it performed faster. So they got away with cranking up the price and selling you an inferior product as a upgrade to the last product. And I'm like, that's just to me. I'm like, that's just poor business practice. Like really, and the fact that I don't know. Anyway, so because of that, I mean, there's a few other reasons. Back in the day, I mean, basically you weren't allowed, you couldn't even open up a Mac and work on it unless you were trained by Apple, by Mac, and by Apple, whatever, Appletosh, Mac and Mackle, some Mackable, Macintosh, anyway, whatever. Poor business practices. Unlike Native Instruments, which has amazing business practices. Always buy Native Instruments. So, A, B, and I. Okay, so going on, I think that covers everything. Obviously, I have control over which filters they go to, so I can send one to one filter, one to the other filter, and then of course I can have the filters in parallel or serial. So if they're, and this is where it is, so if they're in parallel like it is, it's basically splitting and running in one signal through here and one signal through here. If it's in serial, it's running one signal through here and then coming back through and running the second signal through filter 2. So in case you needed to know how the routing worked there. And then of course you also have these down here, which you have a simple low pass, high pass filter on that one, simple low pass, high filter on that one, low pass, high pass filter. See what I'm talking about? You have a low pass, high pass filter on this, you have a low pass, high pass filter on it. I'm talking Michael Schmian here. Anyway, I'm going to stop doing that. People are like, I need to slow down when I speak. Okay. So, and obviously, you have some effects over here. They only give you 2 effects, and really the dimension, the dimension expander, and is a really good one. I use that a lot. But all these pretty much these are all delay. So one of the things that about Massive that is really what fucks up Serum and allows you to break your sound is you can't really break your sound in Massive because no matter what, it's always fixing it. So the last EQ, which honestly, okay, so this EQ is basically just a shelving filter, and as long as you're not cutting frequencies, then you're not going to destroy your sound. But filters are going to destroy your sound. So if you're filtering, you're coming through okay, the instant you get in this amp pan, which is going to feed back, so that's basically that amp, that's your gain. It's a dynamic function. So that fixes your audio. And yeah, so that's the way that Massive is set up is any output you get off of Massive, it's always going to be the same. Like post-processing, you can obviously fuck up the sound, but you can fuck up your sound in Serum without post-processing. Like, hey, I've done it. And in fact, you could do it with Reactor. It took me a long time before I figured out, why every time it sounded really cool when I was playing it live, and then the instant I tried to actually save it, it just sounded like shit. And I was like, why? What the fuck? Because I had no idea what the hell I was doing, in all honesty. Anyway. Alright, so moving along, I don't think I really need to, I mean, if you know what ring modulation does, I could explain this very, very, to a point. I understand it. It's not the easiest to explain. Position, I'm pretty sure that's modulating the position of the waveform. I'm not exactly, let's see what that does here. If I put it on, let's 2, and let's go ahead and crank this up to 36. And what does that sound like here? Turn this on, turn these off, because I don't need those anymore. So yeah, like I thought, position really... Ah, damn it. I shaved earlier, just got a hair in my mouth. Anyway. So, yeah, that's basically, and I don't really think I need to go over noise. Pretty sure I don't need to go over how feedback works. If you don't understand how feedback works, I mean, it's pretty, pretty self-explanatory, I think. And then, of course, the inserts. You have a few options on the insert. Probably going to, honestly, let's just throw this on here. There. So if you do this, that is actually, no matter what you do, you could put this at the end, put clip all the way up, and you're going to rectify any issues you have. If for some reason it doesn't do it automatically, but I'm pretty sure it does. So, and I'm rectifying it here. Anyway, so even if it wasn't, it is. Oh God, my ear hurts. Stupid thing laying against it. Okay. So, to get into the other stuff here, so I think I went over this. So obviously this is your key tracking. So let's just go here to the beginning. Let's go to oscillators. Okay, so in this, I know I explained the internal envelope, but I want to get into the oscillator phase. Okay, now if you have this on, this is going to basically override some of your voicing options. So, like for instance, if like pan and position and wavetable position, you're kind of already controlling that actually. So, if restart via gate is on and you move these, if I go in here to voicing and I turn, I say we'll put it on 4 voices. Give it a little, make it a little louder. I'll turn it down here. Okay, let's just turn this on. I'm not. Yeah, it's not having any effect, because what I have done over here is I have adjusted the starting point already. So the starting point is already controlled. And all this does, all pan position is it's basically pseudo stereo. So I'm not even making real stereo with that. Okay? So that is another thing to keep in mind. If you're using pseudo stereo, you always have to bring the channels back together. Otherwise, you're going to have phasing issues. As like rule 101. Rule number 1. Anyway, let's go ahead and keep this at 4. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here, and I'm just going to turn this off for now. You hear how much of a difference that makes. Because now there's 4 voices. Now they're fucking up because they're all mono. So in order to fix that, I go in here. And it still doesn't really fix it much. So, ideally avoid. Oh yeah, another thing, if you watch it, I'm doing something stupid here. Always use 5. There. Now you can hear it fucking up. So let's just go ahead and turn that back on. There we go. And then here is your pitch shift range right here. So, put it on -12 and +12. A lot of times I like to go between 5 and -7 so that there's an octave difference. But it's, going up is, in either direction you're dealing with a 5th, sort of. Okay. And then we have glide here. So this glide time is not necessarily going to work unless I'm on mono fan, mono rotate, and legato triller is actually one of my favorite. Like, if I'm setting this up for a lead, that's how I'm gonna have it set up, is a mono trait and legato triller, and that way I can wow 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 wow. You know, like, why is he making stupid noises? Because I can. Because I do. Leave me alone. Anyway, then I can turn that up, and then it'll be wah, and that'll control the time at which it takes to glide back and forth. That's not to say that it's so you don't have portamento on here, but with the glide command and the time, you can essentially create portamento, and it's just going to take 2 keys to do, which is not necessarily, I mean, to be quite honest, it's much better like that, trust me. It's just a lot easier to control. Anyway, so moving on. That's how the phases work. That's how the glide works. So now, KTR oscillator. I'm not sure which one of these is a go-to. So this one deals with the filter. So yeah, I've honestly, I've never used this, but if I'm on KTR oscillator, so I can come over here and I can say drag this on here, put that there, and then if I come in here and adjust these, that's actually adjusting with the notes. That's just adjusting this wavetable position, and I can of course control this to give me a much more variation. I can wonder if I can drag it anyway. So I can't do that. So you know, there's that option. So that way, if you know, a lot of times what I'll use this for is not necessarily this. I'll get rid of that right there. I have these going through my filter. So let's just go ahead and put it on a low pass 4. Turn this all the way up. But then I am going to grab this key tracker and put it on this. So on this one, because it's on the filter, I'd have to use it on the filter. So the KTR on the oscillators is actually separate from KTR on filter. It's good to know. And then I'm not even sure what this I don't know what that's, key tracking or what. This obviously is the attack. Maybe that's your after. That's your whatever after thing. I don't know. So see, I don't even know what all these do. I haven't even ever looked at the manual, to be honest with you. Obviously, this is velocity control, so I can have my velocity actually control this. So or if I reset this. There we go. But that's one of the ways too, is using the velocity to control your filter. That's a fun one. too. Gives you a good thing. Just, you know, things to think about there. Anyway, go ahead and off that. So that covers the KTR oscillator and the KTR filter. And then let's get into voicing. Now, I know I kind of went over this partially. You've got your mono trait, you've got your legato triller. Now, this is one thing that I did not know until recently. If you were to set this to chord and set this to, like, say, 7. Let's turn this on. Let's go ahead and stick to 1 here. In fact, let's just go to a basic smooth square, take it off form, put on spectrum. Let's go ahead and turn the filter off. Oh, right. I can go to 3 here. But see, if I turn all the way up to 7, it's actually desirable. Somewhat desirable. You know, but for the longest time, I'm like, you know, the other option here is to have it, you know, if I have it by default as 1, that just sounds horrible. You know, you turn it just a little bit. But, and honestly, this is where I'd normally go with it. And I'm getting some fairly heavy phasing there just because it's 5 voices, mono, and then there's pitch cutoff, and I've already have some pitch there. So, especially if I turn that on. But if you want to give it some more flavor that's not undesirable per se, there's always that option. So, and the difference between chord and centered is chord basically, if it's on chord, it's going to go up. If it's centered, then the voices are in the middle, yada yada. And this is just, if it's all the way up, that means that there are essentially 5 semitones between each voice. And of course, you know, either going up or just across. But so that's basically how that works. The wavetable position obviously is, this is your wavetable position right here. So this is going to affect that. And that's something that sometimes, I mean, adding an LFO on this is not the worst of ideas. And, you know, I'm not exactly sure how it affects it, to be honest with you. But, probably if I turn on multiple ones. That might have a more... Who knows? You know, options. I'm like, I wonder what that does. I've never done that before. It's not really, doesn't much. You know, anyway. Why is that necessary? Okay, so, and that's that. And obviously, I'm sure you know how pan works. But one of the things I will say is, if you're using 5 voices, you got a stereo signal, no matter what. you know, it's, you can't, you know, this whole like pan position, mono, stereo, you know, just, it's pseudo stereo. And pseudo stereo is not stereo. It's not desirable. Let's see. So that covers that. Routing, I think I already went over routing. Global, I mean, you know, this can be useful. You know, but I mean, I don't know. If you don't know what you're doing, going in and randomizing things is always fun. And of course, you can also change your global pitch right here. So, you know, if for some reason you've fucked it up over here, or, you know, you have a, say, a patch out of your, gee, how many patches do I have? I have a lot. I have a lot of patches. I don't even want to get in. I have like hundreds of thousands of patches for this. Anyway. Gosh, I guess that's probably it. I'm betting this is probably a 2-hour tutorial. Let's see, how long is it? Huh? How long we got? Oh, 1 hour and 16 minutes. I guess that's not the worst thing ever. Okay, so yeah, that's basically your command. Oh, I guess to go over this real quick. So obviously you have other functions here. I tend to just to leave that off for the most part. You know, you don't need to turn any of those on, but you can. And you know, I'm sure that you could probably do some really cool things through side chaining with this. But I don't really ever use it. I don't know. I guess I could, but you know, not exactly sure. You know, I'd have to read the manual on that one. What? Do you see this? I got a beard. I'm a guy. I don't read fucking manuals. Like, that's like asking for directions. I'm just not doing no. Okay. I'm usually the first person to ask for directions, and I almost always read the manual. But I just don't have the manual for this. I didn't think I needed it. Apparently, I probably do. But, you know, that's what I said. Even, you know, I've used that, and I have an idea of what it does, but, you know, not well enough to explain it. That's for sure. And you have a few options here, too. So, you know, you can, like, add this to modulation, you can add this to a key tracking group, aftertouch, yeah, that's what I thought. AT, it's an after something. Oh. Anyway. Okay, well, I do believe I am just about dead after that. You know, hopefully you understand Massive a little better now. I definitely do. There's some things about this I had no clue about. Shit. I was like, what? I can do what? Wow. Good to know. Good to know. Morphing. Huh. Crazy. So decay. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to play around with that. I can see how that'd be very useful in some, you know, well, I guess that's your vibrato. How you add vibrato to things. That's, yeah, I'm gonna have to do some more sound design here. I'm like, aha, yes, I know exactly what I would use that for. And, you know, I was thinking, God, how would I do that? Like, you know, there's other times where I'm like just basically adding vibrato or trying to modulate it so it's just at the very end, you know, because I don't want it, I don't want it at the beginning. You know, you want it, and then it kind of like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not making any sense to myself here. So that is about all I have for today. You know, boom, cut that there. Now it's, you know, now it looks all right. And yeah, that is all I got for Massive. Hopefully that's not too much information for you. And yeah, Shadow Gauge out. Make sure to check out 2 Lo-Fi. I got some music, good music, awesome music, amazing music. I swear to God. You know, I used to hate my music. I'm like, people are like, oh, that's really good. I'm like, the fuck you talking about? This is some lousy ass fucking music you're complimenting me on, you asshole. Tell me it sounds good. What the fuck's wrong with you? Just kidding. Anyway, all right, brothers and sisters, Shadow Gauge is out. Booyah!